Hi everybody, welcome to the episode today. Today I bring you a very special guest. She's my friend, first most, and she is also a professor. So I'm going to introduce you to Professor Christine Rivers, and we will find out a lot more about Christine. Hi Christine.
Hi Mandy, thank you so much for inviting me. Such a pleasure to be here.
You're very welcome. How are you? How are you feeling?
I'm good. I'm excited, and I really look forward to this conversation. And we've had so many before,
Yes.
And it's always so insightful what we come up with and how we connect. So let's see where it goes today.
Yeah, let's see, definitely. Thank you so much, Christine. It's an absolute honour to have people like yourself on the show, people who come with so much subject matter expertise, so much learning and so much to give. Yeah, I can't wait. So let's unfold. So tell us, tell us about your early career. Where did it start? Who were your mentors? What shaped it?
Yeah, what a great question, right? I think in terms of my career path, there's something really important that has driven me and got me to where I am. And that is curiosity. I would say it's my secret ingredient. I've always been very curious about life, and I could never decide which way to go. And I think this is what ultimately got me to do my PhD and, to be fair, then to remain in academia, because it really, fits with my curious mindset, but also this growth mindset, constantly wanting to know more, to learn more, to expand. And I knew that I wouldn't want a career where I'm stuck or where I have, little autonomy. I'm quite a free spirit as well. And so that was a very important part that I think contributed to how I got to where I am now. And particularly in the beginning, when you start with a career, and that I've moved from Austria to the UK to do my PhD. I got a scholarship in 2006, actually, so nearly 20 years ago.
Wow.
And then did my PhD here, started off in a complete different area that was very alien to me. It was the Department of Engineering. They were looking for a social scientist, and I did communications and psychological anthropology as my undergraduate and master's degree. It was a combined one, before the new law came in. And basically, I was brought in to study remote collaboration from a social and psychological perspective. How does things like Zoom, Teams that we do every single day affect our decision-making, the way we collaborate, the way we communicate? What's the impact of technology? And how do we need to design the user interface to support us socially, but also psychologically in business? So that's really why I came here. And I found it really interesting and fascinating. And what did we have? We had Skype at the time. And my scholarship, I was funded by a particular company. I won't name it here. And they were doing a prototype of a particular type of technology. And I was working with them to explore that. Little did I know that this research was quite influential throughout COVID for a lot of higher education institutions. And I had to sort of go back to it and then share my expertise of what I found at the time, because there was still so little known about it. And we were able to obviously support a lot of higher education institutions at the time to provide excellent education to the students and support. So I finished my PhD and I set myself goals and they might sound really ambitious sometimes, maybe as well. And if somebody would tell me that, I would say, oh my God, why are you doing this so fast? So the scholarship for my PhD was for 3 years full time, and I was adamant that I'm going to do it within 3 years. And everybody was like, oh my God, nobody does a PhD within the time frame. I did. I also had my first son within that time, and I got married, and still I'm here in the UK. And then after that, I started as a research assistant, and I did a little bit more sort of, research into how we can analyze this particular type of collaboration. And the research project came to an end. And because I did a little bit of work in marketing beforehand throughout my studies when I was living in Austria, I applied for a lectureship in marketing at the business school, and they took me on board. And then I'm still at the business school at Surrey University.
Wow. Wow.
So yeah, Surrey
Congratulations.
Business School has been my home
Wow.
since 2010 or 2011. Yeah.
Wow.
And from there, I then realized that I was really interested in the educational side of things and the psychology of learning and how we can support students who are young adults in, thriving throughout their studies. But most importantly, I came back to my technology as expertise. How can we bring the two worlds together? So most, universities in the UK are still very focused on in-person teaching. And so the virtual learning environment space was just growing. And at the time, it was like a dumping ground for information. And I wanted to bring the two worlds together because I realized that the generations, they don't actually distinguish between an online and offline space. Okay, yeah, they might be here in person, but at the same time, they have to access the materials online. They have to work with the internet. And so I took quite a lot of time to look into that. And so a lot of my research came out of that around how we can advance that forwards. And then alongside this, I met a lot of people and I made my mark internationally. I had fantastic mentors who were really wonderful to take me under their wing as an early career academic at the time. And I made very, very strong and lovely connections and built relationships across the various ponds. And I was traveling a lot to, share my research, but also to work and collaborate internationally with other academics in this field. And then I set up the Center for Management Education, which was sort of a competency center, if you want, for people who want to go into business schools and teach marketing, finance, accounting, whatever it is. Because the other thing that we realized was that, you can't learn business from a textbook. You need practitioners to also share their expertise and most importantly, help students not just develop the knowledge and the business acumen, but also the skills that are needed to thrive in business. And so I dedicated probably 7 to 8 years in, training over 100. It was 150, I think, practitioners in the end, internationally, to become business educators. And a lot of them are, now teachers or academics at the University of Surrey, but also elsewhere. And yeah, it was a really wonderful time. And that center then turned into a department and it was thriving. And then I think it was sort of a couple of years ago when the restructuring happened at university that we folded that and a new journey for me started.
Okay.
And so what you can see here is that I was always looking for new projects, things of how I can expand my knowledge, my mind, and do something with purpose and have meaning. For me, we are the masters of our own life and our meaning. I'm quite existentialist in that sense. There's only two things that are certain. We are born and we die. And the rest in between we can shape as it comes. And embrace it as well. And it was throughout that time that I was working with people and that, I also started to connect with myself more. And I started to tap into this whole idea around mindfulness. And particularly as I realized that a lot of students and also academics, and it coincided with COVID, of course, were experiencing huge amounts of stress and anxiety. I was already working as an executive coach at the time, so I was interested in that sort of development side of things, of people and working with students and academics. But yeah, and then I took my research in that direction and I combined how we can bring mindfulness into business education, and then from there how we can bring mindfulness more into business, how we can make it part of a professional development strand, if you want. And yeah, I did my yoga teacher training. Absolutely love teaching yoga, and especially because it creates a space for everyone else to take some time for themselves. And I think we live such busy lives.
Wow, yeah.
So just, taking that, and it's such a privilege to provide that space. And even though I teach it and people think, oh, do you not want to have that space? I do, but I get so much out of it. I would rather be paid, to be honest, to do it than just join, know. So that has really become my passion, and I launched my first business in 2021, actually, 4 years ago in January 2021. And that has been thriving since. And I deliver mindfulness sessions, workshops to businesses, but I also work with schools and of course universities. And then as I sort of continued in the sort of personal professional development arena and a lot around the mindfulness side of things, I moved a little bit away from the business education development side, but I came back to a very old love and something that I wanted to do since I was 13. I wanted to actually become a psychotherapist.
Oh,
and so
wow.
I decided to follow that and to follow my heart. And so now I have a private practice. I'm practicing as an integrative therapist, and I really enjoy that as well, and it gives me so much joy. But it's the combination of my academic stuff that I do and teaching personal and professional development now and decision making and things like that, with my yoga love and passion. And then working one-on-one as a therapist, that really fulfills me. Yeah. And I feel I have a lot of freedom, and I feel I can relate to people. And I do feel competent in what I'm doing. I might sound arrogant maybe, but I do. And I continuously train and do more development and stuff because I think there's so much more to learn. And that is really, these are also the 3 pillars of self-determination theory: competence, autonomy, and relatedness.
Wow.
And so, I always will double check, are we still in line with them? And how does this sit with me? And then how does it align with my heart? Yeah. And if my head and my heart are in alignment, then the world is working well.
Wow. Gosh, that's amazing. You started off with this curiosity, and you've traveled wide and far and reached out to many different capabilities and areas to help people, and you've kind of like established yourself in this world with all of the knowledge that you've got, and yet you show up just brilliantly. You're in who you are, how you are, using these 3 pillars that you talk about. So share those pillars again, just the 3 that help you.
So they are built on this self-determination theory approach, and it's competence, autonomy, and relatedness. And it basically says that when we feel competent in what we are doing, so we have the skills, we have the capabilities, and we know how to apply them, and we develop them further. And we feel autonomous in what we're doing. So we have freedom, we have control over our own work, and also maybe journey. You're carving out your own journey, and your own role perhaps is an important part for me. And that's what I also teach in my development courses quite often. And then the relatedness, how do I relate to, and there is different layers. How do I relate to myself, understanding myself? This is where the mindfulness stuff comes in. How do I relate to other people? And how do I relate to the community? So, and that could be, all sorts of different, could be a work community, could be a yoga community, could be the mums community, or whatever that is. Or the environment at large. And if those 3 are fulfilled and met, then you have a good balance of, I would say, extrinsic and intrinsic motivation to do what you want to do. If you keep them in check, then you're quite likely to find your north.
So let me just replay this. So it's self-determination, autonomy, and relatedness.
So self-determination, the concept, consists of competence, autonomy, and relatedness.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Wow. And this is the sort of model you use consciously or subconsciously to bring you to, and now you're saying like towards the North Star.
Yeah, exactly. So, if there is something, let's say, where I feel a bit like, I don't know enough about it, or somebody brings me an issue, a challenge, I don't say, oh yeah, I can do it. And I wouldn't say, oh no, I can't do it. I would say, this sounds really interesting. Give me some time, let me look into it, and I'll let you know whether I can work with you, help you or not. And then I do my research. Maybe it means that I can't work with them now, or I can't do this now, but then I'm curious enough to go, right, I will go and get the knowledge. I will go and get the skills to do it, right? Or I say, yeah, let's do it. But I let you know that I will be learning on the go as well. And I think that is actually really important because it keeps you grounded. And, I don't know everything. There are so many things I don't know. Yeah, I probably know less than I know in a way even as well. So that plays an important part for me. And it's a bit like, I've written a book called Mindfulness and Business Education. And with that, I sort of finished the chapter and I'm now on to the next book. So that's good. But when you write a book, it's not that you're writing it because you know everything.
Yeah.
It's more like you are learning on the go as well.
Yeah.
And sometimes you come to a point while you're writing a book and you think, I don't know the answer to this. And then your brain wants to go, where is the answer?
Yeah.
And you try to look for it.
Yeah.
Right? So,
wow,
yeah.
This is amazing.
Yeah.
This is amazing because so many people think they have to have the answer there and then. They cannot say, let me come back to you, let me take that away. So this is quite reassuring, coming from a professor, coming from somebody who's changed her path, her course. How wonderful is that to have that kind of reassurance to actually find a way. You don't have to have that way straight away.
Yeah, and I think especially for this new generation coming up, and I see it in my own children, they're teenagers now, there's a lot of pressure from schools and then also university. Oh, you need to graduate, you need to get a job. But there is so much out there and it's so overwhelming for them. How should they know with 14? Well, I did sort of know what I wanted roughly when I was 13, but my path went very differently. It took me a long way around, to come back to my wish when I was 13. And so, but I think I wouldn't have been able to do that anyway when I was younger because I didn't have the maturity to do that. Now my life experience helps me to connect with the people I work with, either in academia or as a therapist, or in yoga in a very different way. When I teach yoga to younger people, let's say 18-year-olds, some are mature enough to understand what it means, but a lot of them are struggling, or they find it weird or silly, or they're making fun of it, or they're laughing. And, even if you bring, let's say, a short meditation into a lecture, there is laughter. And I say, let it be there. Let it be present. I'm not going to tell them off, It's part of the development. It's fine. But there is so much, I think, uncertainty for them.
Yeah.
And that will always be there, And it's about how can we approach that. And I think curiosity is that sort of that powerful tool, if you want, that can help you navigate uncertainty a lot better. You don't need to know.
I love what you've just said there about the younger yoga students who laugh maybe, or, when you bring the meditation in to a practice, because actually everything is energy. We've often talked about this, that everything is energy, and you cannot just expel it. If it's there, it's there.
Exactly. If you cry, you cry, and if you laugh, you laugh. Everybody's different how we process the energy in the body. And what is the energy? The energy is quite often sensation and emotion. We don't often go and label it and say, I'm having a we now know certain things like, oh, this might be anxiety. We can give that labels.
Yeah.
But when we have to laugh or when we have to cry, a lot of the time people go, I don't know why.
Yeah.
And it's, can we connect with that? Can we allow, can we give ourselves space for this to be there? And I think when we do that, it sort of ripples out into other parts of our life as well. And we just become a lot nicer people. And we can also then tap into that connection with other people. So yeah, that's, I think, was really important.
Yeah. I look at it and I think all of these kinds of, emotions or behaviors, I look at them and think they're all different kinds of maybe like teachings, archetypes, or the essence of the laughter, giggle. It's like sometimes like a childlike quality.
Yes.
And not necessarily dangerous or anything, but it's just, you can notice that. And similarly, when you have the kinds of managerial and supervisor and kind of like really hard, fast and almost dictator type of qualities, they're still qualities. They may not be very positive, but you do get them. And it's like looking at those in that kind of a way again makes you think about them differently, connect with people, understand people better, rather than being afraid or even not knowledgeable, because we've all got this way to process, like you were saying.
Yeah, it is. So it is absolutely like that. It's really lovely what you said about the childlikeness, because when we become adults, we feel, and you sometimes see that also in the younger generation, we feel we have to ban and exile that little child. And this is then what happens when people come to therapy, because they suddenly realize that this child inside of them has been pushed down, has been pushed away, but it still has things to say. And I think this is where mindfulness is a wonderful teacher and a wonderful way to connect with that, if you don't want to do therapy, like inner child work and stuff. But because we all have an inner child. And instead of being afraid of it, or instead of, pushing it more away and banishing it or whatever you think about it, how can we invite it? How can we make it part of our experience? And so I sometimes, and this might sound really crazy, but I sometimes, and this was something I learned from my own, education as a therapist and my own therapy as well. I sometimes imagine I take my inner child on the hand and say, let's go. And she's so oblivious to things, but she's also very curious and very funny. And just says what she thinks, And I have a lot more appreciation for this part of me that, and this is where the curiosity was always there, but for this part of me that just wants to be present and just wants to dance around and do a cartwheel and, have a choke in yoga. Everything is so serious in life.
Everything is. It's I think since pandemic things changed a lot. People because the pandemic was a serious time. Lockdown, I mean, that word lockdown sounds awful, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Just but so much happened and so much has morphed out of that now, and it continues. I mean, there've been wars, there've been there've been destructive things, but there've also been like some positive things as well. So we can definitely take different lenses, can't we, just to examine the life in that way. But what a beautiful way to connect with yourself. I love the way that you're holding the hand of your that little child, a little girl, and it almost brought tears to my eyes just when you said that.
And what make you what do you think makes you tear up?
Because I think many people lose that, and they feel they have to step into, the older woman, the elder, and this kind of like person that is created by society in a certain way.
Yeah.
And yet actually the little girl or the little boy, you know, our younger version of ourselves
Yeah.
is still with us.
Always.
It's
Yeah.
still with us.
Yeah.
And we've just got a different coat on now.
Yes.
You know, this
Yeah.
this whole kind of embodiment thing is so important, just to be able to embody that feeling, that sensation of actually there is that child, and acknowledge that, as well as acknowledging the fact that yes, you know, you're also an expert in your field, or you're a mum, or whatever role it is that you've you know, you're fulfilling. We're fulfilling.
Yeah,
these
that's right.
roles.
It is. And, you know, I often talk about the fact that when we do some sort of identity exploration or something,
Yeah.
you have got these different roles. But what's the underneath? What's the, you know, the ongoing sort of always there narrative in a way that doesn't change, but also that feeling and, you know, maybe excitement or whatever it is, that's always there, whether you're a mom, whether you're at work, whether you're, and yeah, sometimes we hide that, right? And I'm not saying we need to be it's a difficult, I had this conversation with a coaching client the other day actually, at work. Bring your whole self to work is something that a lot of people say. And then some people say, but I don't want that. And I think that's absolutely okay. And there are certain degrees of what you can bring to work from yourself and what not. You know, I think when you have matured to an adult, you can distinguish between what is appropriate, perhaps, and what is inappropriate. It doesn't mean that you have to banish anything. But we are a multiplicity of parts. We're just not one, you know, Mandy adult or Christine adult. There is this, you know, this plethora of different parts in us, and the inner child is one of them, and the adult is another, right? And so is being a mom, and so is being sometimes angry or anxious or excited or curious or whatever it is, right? It's just about how we learn to manage it, you know, and then think about in this context, in this environment at work, this is how I behave, but can I behave that way and stay true to my heart? That's the question.
Yeah, that's a good one, isn't it? Because the heart is actually quite core to everybody. It's the center point of us.
Yeah.
And isn't it interesting, like we say mindfulness, and I don't know about you, but when I hear the word mindfulness or mind, I always think it's in my head.
Of course, yes. And yet it's a body-mind connection,
It is,
or even a body-heart or body-gut or whatever you want to. You know, some people talk about it more as heartfulness rather than mindfulness. So there's a lot of philosophical debates around how we should maybe think about it. But yeah, I think everybody needs to have their own sort of connection with that, because even the gut, you know, is understood as a second brain. Yeah. So from a mindfulness perspective, it isn't just here, but it is also here. Yeah. And how the two are talking or not makes a difference in a way, right? So, yeah. And it's interesting, I think, that certainly as I tapped more into this whole mindfulness space, I suddenly became far more aware of my body and how I move, how I present, how I move my hands even now. And I have a couple of clients who really want to get there but really struggle. And it's something to practice because it's a muscle. And we need to train it and practice it. But it's through sort of this holistic approach that we can, I think, you know, strengthen our awareness for ourselves. And through that, we can strengthen the awareness of self and others. And then we have this ability to tap into other people's, let's call them energy fields. Because you suddenly become really aware if somebody's tense. Because you know how to let go and release, perhaps. And for me, in yoga, when I teach it, and you've been to some of the sessions and stuff.
Yes, and I've been blown away by your yoga.
The best part of it is when you can feel the energy in the room shifting from the very moment that people arrive, when they're running late or when they were in traffic or they're just there after work. And, the first thing I say is take a moment, settle in, and just become aware of how you're feeling right here, right now. Maybe you've had a busy day already, maybe not so much. But notice without judgment any sensations. And then we move from that. And then you go to Shavasana, the very end, where we go into deeper relaxation. And sometimes I lie down with people, and sometimes I sit cross-legged or something else, and I speak to it. And the interesting part is I can feel that energy in the room going like this, down. And sometimes you can feel you just want to stay in that space with them, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to stop them because they're just all in this same collective shared consciousness almost.
Yeah.
And that's worth every moment to teach every Friday evening. Yes.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. It's incredible, this world that we're living in, this kind of fast-paced world with, like multi-devices and multi-connections. And
Yeah.
having to, always be switched on and not disconnect. To have like yoga and meditation, I think these tools are ancient.
Yes.
And yet they're so really necessary in today's world.
And relevant still.
Yeah. That relevance. And, how can people find you? I'll post the links into the episode. But where are the best places, do you think, would find you, Christine, if they were looking for somebody, a great teacher, a great, a great person?
Oh, thank you. So yeah, of course. So I'm on LinkedIn. If you put in Professor Christine Rivers, even though I'm not so much about the titles, but it's just how it happened. But you can also look at my website. So for yoga, I have mindfulnessspaces.com, where I offer coaching, professional development stuff, mindfulness workshops for businesses, schools, and so on. And sort of more for the therapy work, it would be yateleytherapyspace.com.
Okay.
But people can just, connect with me on LinkedIn. And then also I'm on Instagram and Facebook. If you put my name in, then you find me on Facebook. And I think on Instagram, I called it Mindful Life Creator something like that. Oh. So yeah, just follow me there.
I shall definitely share those links. Before we sort of wrap it up, let's just have just a couple more little insights from you, if you may.
Sure.
What would be your top advice for someone starting off in their journey, in their profession, whatever it may be? What would you advise them?
That's a good question. It's easy to say follow your heart.
Yeah.
But obviously there are other circumstances to consider, financials, responsibilities, commitments that maybe somebody has caring-wise or under. But yeah, if you will know, your body knows far more than you think. Trust it. If there is resistance, you can tap into that. Then something needs adjusting. I'm not saying changing completely 180%, but there needs to be an adjustment, because what the body wants is it wants to be in balance. It will always calibrate for alignment. And the more we push against that, the more we, if you want, swim against the stream, the harder it is, the more tired, exhausted, and burnout we will get quicker. So can you jump in the river and be taken by the tide and be okay with that? So that's, I guess, feel into the body, tune in. Doesn't take much. Just notice what comes up for you and let those initial thoughts, feelings, and sensations be your guide, and they will bring you to your North Star.
Wow, Christine, that's amazing. Absolutely amazing. I don't really want to stop, actually. I want to carry on and ask you more questions.
We can always do another episode.
I think we should, definitely. It's been wonderful just to have you on the show and just to have these insights. You are somebody who's got a lot to share. You've got a lot of valuable insight, and perhaps we could have you back on the show again. That would be wonderful. Thank you so much.
Would be my pleasure.
Thanks a lot. Wow, I hope you all enjoyed this episode as much as I have, and I've just been sat here glued to Christine. Please may I ask you to subscribe, share and like, and I really look forward to the next show with you. Thank you for now. Bye-bye.